Thank you to today's Game Day Instant Analysis sponsor, Meredith Schlosser, one of the top real estate agents in Los Angeles with over $900 million in sales and more than 295 five-star Zillow reviews. Meredith was recently recognized by Wall Street Journal within the top 1.5% of agents in the nation. You can learn more about Meredith and her team for rentals, sales, and purchases at www.meredithschlosser.com. Also check out her business Instagram at Meredith Real Estate. And now, here's Game Day Instant Analysis.
For USCFootball.com, Connor Morrissette and Chris Trevino were here on the field of the Coliseum after USC beats Michigan 31-13, Chris. A huge win for Lincoln Riley, a huge win for USC. Off the top of my head, I just want to say right off the bat, this was, for USC, a game on paper where I think their explosive offense should have done what they did tonight against Michigan, but it's another thing to play a game on paper. USC, they did what they needed to do. They get the top 15 win. So much to talk about going into this one, but I think overall, we haven't seen USC play a complete game like this to beat a ranked team since LSU last season at the beginning of the year in the regular season. It's a big win, and I don't want to take anything away from the team. 31-13 against Michigan after Michigan went to Nebraska and won. It's a big deal.
A huge deal, and there was a lot of great energy in this Coliseum, and we'll talk about that. But just outside the Coliseum, a lot of excitement, but a lot of anxiousness because you didn't really know what was going to happen. This was such a huge game. I cannot stress that enough. This was a crossroads game. You could either go down a very bad path, or you can get some momentum and possibly have a breakout season for Lincoln Riley. This was, a lot of people have been talking about it. Is this the biggest win of the Lincoln Riley era? We talk about the LSU game. I think that was the most important win of the Lincoln Riley era. This was a huge game, top 15 opponent, in your home. You played well at home, but to be able to come in and beat an opponent like this, Michigan, I know it's not, Michigan of the national championship years, but this was a physical game, and USC out-physicaled Michigan in a Big Ten matchup. They got their lick back from last season. It was an impressive from top to bottom. The defense, we had huge question marks. We were down on them. We were talking about how bad they were against Illinois, rightfully so. And they came out here with a message to prove, and they did it out on this field. Credit to them. Credit to Danton Lynn. He earned his paycheck. We'll get into all that, but absolutely a massive win for USC.
3 weeks ago, I think we were doing Instant in the Stands, and I said, Danton Lynn's not earning his paycheck. Yes, so tonight earns his paycheck. Cut the check for him. And winning at the line of scrimmage, I guess we can start there. Where USC, remember last year against Michigan when Elijah Page gets benched? They were just having all sorts of issues. Tobias Raymond comes in, looks a little bit lost. Well, now this year, he's your most important offensive lineman. He starts at left tackle tonight, and the offensive line doesn't miss a beat. Down 3 starters. I'm including, from the beginning of the season, DJ Wingfield. And then Killian O'Connor's out. Page is out tonight as well. Raymond at left tackle, Micah Benuelos at left guard, Big General Reed at center. And no sacks allowed. USC rushes for over 200 yards on the ground. King Miller has 158 of them and a touchdown. Just an incredible performance from an offensive line that was undermanned when last season, yes, it was on the road, but USC's undermanned offensive line was terrible last year. That's development. That's the sign of a big step forward from one year to the next year. And if you're a fan of USC football, that's something you can sink your teeth into and say, hey, look, I'm seeing improvement that I don't think we've necessarily seen under Lincoln Riley to this point outside of that first year where everything was just going great and then the end kind of slipped. But this improvement is notable and it's worth talking about.
When we're talking about cutting the check for Dan Lynn, cut the check for Zach Hansen.
Yes.
He has been absolutely a superstar coach this season.
Yes.
Had a lot of talent. We didn't know about the depth, but they have been crushing it this season. And this was, I don't have the benefit of the rewatch, and I was watching from the field, but I thought this was the best game they played without Elijah Page. If you were going to talk about here preseason about a game Michigan, they do not have Elijah Page, and you're starting without your starting center, we would have thought you were crazy that this was going to be one of their best games. They took it to Michigan. They outrushed Michigan. This was a really, really good run defense. This was a completely different offensive line than what we saw in Ann Arbor last season. They played so well. Jaden Mayava, we'll talk about him. But yeah, starting up front, USC's offensive line, I actually felt pretty good about them coming to this game. And, I think they played exceptional. We'll see on the tape and everything. But Jeremy Reed nails this game. A lot of issues against the Illinois coming in there, miscommunications. I can't think of anything where I was like, oh, that's outside of maybe that false start at the end there.
Tough to tell if that was on him. Probably when it's everyone but the center, but still, we're not really talking about him, and that's good. You don't want to be talking about your center. I thought he was nails too.
A couple snaps, maybe a little too quick up the high, but overall, an impressive game for John Reed. There were players talking about he's going to be ready, and he went out there and he played, and that offensive line was ready. Right, they were great against one of the best run defenses in the country. I'm not talking Big Ten, the country, and they made a statement here tonight for that offensive line. So, a bunch of gold starts for them and John Reed.
That's one of the stories of the game. USC defensively winning in the trenches, another story of the game. But we got to talk about King Miller, Chris. So I think there's like 12 and a half minutes left in the third quarter. It's 3rd and 26 after that Makai Lemon unnecessary roughness or whatever it was, personal foul penalty. Backs him up, 3rd and 26, and you're just like, okay, just get 10 and punt. Like, I don't think even the biggest USC homer was thinking they were picking up that first down. Lo and behold, they hand it off to Miller, and he runs for 49 yards, and then 2 plays later, he scores a 15-yard touchdown to put USC ahead 21-14. That didn't end the game, but that 2-touchdown cushion was huge. King Miller with Wayman Jordan out, Eli Sanders out, Brian Jackson, we thought out, and then he comes back. They were undermanned at the running back spot. What a remarkable story for a walk-on against a really good rushing defense in Michigan to come out and have the game that he had tonight. He also had a 47-yard run. He was phenomenal. Player of the game for me.
Absolutely. This was the King Miller game. Absolutely. Just, this is kind of like the thing you dream about as a player, especially as a walk-on. It's such an amazing story. He should not leave the Coliseum as a walk-on. He should his game ball should have come wrapped in a scholarship. That's all I'm saying. Super humble and just played one of the best performances we've seen with a walking infirmary unit that was USC's running back. So good, and just that 49-yard run changed the game. You're only down up a touchdown, and Michigan's got some momentum. You back yourself up. You shoot yourself in the foot. They're going to get the ball back. Maybe they go down and tie this game, and we're talking about a different ball game. But to go in there, it was kind of reminded me, I'm not dating myself, but the Friday Night Lights, the movie where they're backed up. He's got no running backs. He literally has no running backs. They're telling him to throw. He's like, I'm going to run it down his throat. And that's exactly what they did. And Michigan, I don't know. I don't know what they were doing on that play, but a huge play for King Miller. He's just him in this game. So King Miller, hats off to him, crowns on to him. That's what they were doing to him all night. So King Miller, just a fantastic game. And, they asked him, do you think you should be on scholarship? He was very humble. He's like, it's up to God's. I just go out there and do what I do. That's all he said. And he went out there and did what he did.
USC had the chance to land a knockout blow, and Jaden Mayava threw a disappointing interception, a throw that I'm sure he wants back on the 3rd and 12. Going out of bounds, just floats it up to no one in particular. And later in the year, against a better team on the road, like an Oregon or maybe even in Nebraska, they're not better than Michigan. Michigan beat them, but on the road, that's a play that could really hurt USC. Outside of that decision, I thought Mayava had another good game, and USC did get the knockout blow. It just came a little bit later. Bishop Fitzgerald intercepting Underwood after that pick was probably the knockout blow in this game. So it didn't come quite as early as we had hoped, but USC, they didn't have an easy time landing a knockout blow against Michigan State, and they did it tonight against Michigan. I think that's another sign of progress.
Complete game on all sides of the ball, and we can argue what the knockout blow is. Brian Jackson, impressive 29-yard run.
That was probably the real one, but I think Bishop getting that pick sort of sealed it.
Yeah, absolutely. On a weird throw, it's just an easy pick for him. 2 picks. The last one too was just give him the ball at the end. So
that was the backup.
That was the backup, Jaden Davis. But just an impressive performance from the defense overall. But you're right, getting that kill blow, getting it at home, finding it, sending the Michigan fans to the exits early. They showed it on the Jumbotron, a little trolling. So after what happened last year in the big house, this one had to feel really good for USC fans, just being able to finish it and not have this drag out to be like, oh, you got to get that one stop at the end, or you need that score in the end.
And it looked like that a little bit after the Mayava pick, because Michigan started to march the ball down the field, and it was like, oh, they had a chance and they gave it away, but USC was just the better team tonight, and that, I think, is the most encouraging part of this whole game, where coming into this one, and even before the season, I think most fans, they were cautiously optimistic. Michigan with a true freshman quarterback, is their offense explosive enough to keep up with USC? And throw USC's defensive bone here, too. They got to make life hard for Michigan, and that's what happened. But that was where the game needed to be won. USC needed to outscore Michigan, and that's exactly what happened. And there were games last year where you think USC just needs to do this one thing and they'll win, and they didn't do it. So tonight, against a good team, USC does what they need to do to get the win. And it's a low bar, but hey, it's a ranked opponent at home. I mean, it's a low bar in terms of like them just doing what they're capable of. But they did that tonight. And I think that's a sign of progress.
And we're thinking about it, this game should have been over probably earlier. They had 2 red zone turnovers with the Lake McCree. That was looking like points. And then obviously the turnover we're talking about there, Lake McCree took a massive hit.
He got popped.
Got to hold on to the ball. But, I'd still be on the turf right there after that hit. So, but they could have put this team away earlier. You want to see that. Red zone turnovers are never great. Obviously, Illinois, they were able to hang around with Illinois because of those. Then the opposite end during that game where, they were able to scrap and stay in that game. Could have been a different story. But in the end of the day, offense did what it needed to do. Defense did what it needed to do. But, yeah, felt like there should have been – USC dominated this game, and it felt like they should have had at least 10 more points in this game.
If you went on the peristyle at any point in the first half, you would have thought USC was down 21-0. There's a lot of doom and gloom on the peristyle, which USC was up 7-0 for a lot of that first half, and then to go in 14-7, like that was just the way this game was going to be. Yeah, Michigan might get a touchdown here or there, but USC, I really felt like they were pretty firmly in control, pretty consistently. A few moments that made you kind of squeamish a little bit, but I didn't understand all the negativity. Anyway, I think that's just what happens during these games. Let's talk about this USC defense, Chris. So they come out and they start with 3 linebackers. Jaden Walker gets his first career start. Eric Gentry, Desmond Stevens start in there. When USC went to the nickel package, it wasn't Alex Graham. He played at the very end of this game, so he is back. But Kamari Ramsey would play nickel. Christian Pierce would come in alongside Bishop Fitzgerald. What'd you make of that 3 linebacker look? I think it worked, all things considered. If Justice Haynes had continued to play more, he got hurt, the star Michigan running back, I think in the second quarter, maybe that would have changed things. But that was an adjustment from Danton Lynn that I think worked pretty well.
That's why you earn your paycheck, because things aren't working. You got to try something different. And that 3 linebacker look is something that we saw against Illinois, and they had some success with it. So we even asked, Danton about it this week in practice. Like, you saw 3 linebacker looks. What do you need to do that for more? And, I don't remember what his answer was, but something they're still working out. And they went out with it today. Obviously this is a huge rushing team. Michigan top 15 in the country, 6th in the country, I believe, in yards per carry. 6-point yard. I don't know what they finished with today, but USC did outrush them. But you expected that because, as we said, you have to come in and stop the run. You have to make Michigan go through Bryce Underwood. You want the ball in the true freshman's hands while everything's going crazy around. That was the blueprint. Stop Justice Hayes, stop that running back core, make Bryce Underwood, the 5-star freshman, number 1 overall player, make him stop you. All those accolades, but he is still a true freshman on the road, and he has not played particularly well on the road. Obviously, they've been leaning more on the run on the road, obviously. But for him, I think it played out exactly how USC and Danton Lynn wanted. They wanted to make him have to do big plays. They got some sacks on him, got some pressure. At the end of the day, that big pick, interception, end of the day, they did their job, and it played out exactly as we thought it should for this defense.
Underwood had a couple nice moments. The 69-yard touchdown pass to Andrew Marsh, a mistake in the secondary for USC. But 2 weeks after that Illinois game where USC had multiple mistakes in the secondary, I'll take one mistake that leads to a touchdown. I didn't think it would be a perfect game for USC in the secondary, and it wasn't. Carlos Nicholson got picked on a few times. That's something that we'll pay attention to as time goes on. But you made the great point. USC made Bryce Underwood beat them tonight, and he wasn't able to do it, which is no tall task. Like, it's not easy for him to do. I'm not trying to throw any shade at the kid. That was a really tough spot for him to be in. I don't blame him for not being able to get it done. I credit USC's defense. They did a really nice job.
Nice 3rd and longs, put him in that situation where you have to throw the ball. So that was what they did. And 0 penalties for the defense. I think 3 penalties on the entire night, all on the offense, no PI, none of that. So that is a huge improvement for USC's defense after, not saying they're all on them, but USC came in averaging 8.2 penalties per game, most in the Big Ten, bottom of the country, and they finished with 3. That's good stuff.
Yeah, like you said, none on defense after all the hands to the face, the pass interference, defensive holding. Huge step in the right direction. In the secondary, I really liked, even though they had some up and down moments, I really liked that DeCarlos Nicholson and Marcellus Williams, those were the corners pretty much the whole game, and that's just what they went with. No more rotating, no more we're just doing it by committee. Those are the 2 best guys. They've won the job. Take it or leave it with them. They're not going to be perfect, but I just like that they're going with 2 guys. That was something else that stood out to me. And then on the defensive line, Jakeem Stewart had a patented run stuff when he just almost takes the handoff from the quarterback. Yeah, good for one of those per game. USC just controlled the line of scrimmage defensively, which we didn't see that against Illinois. Michigan's assistant coach, I forget exactly his title and name, but said we're going to out-physical them, like that's the plan, and USC responded, which was great to see.
Yeah, they look pissed. They look nasty. They look, like they've been thinking about the Illinois game for 2 weeks as they had, and we were talking about how they didn't get started at all against Illinois. They kept saying we slow started. They started really fast tonight with that 3 and out, getting some pressure, getting some sacks. I think they finished with 3 sacks in this game. Devin Tompkins, I think, was credited with 2. He said, this was the kind of mentality they wanted to take, and they wanted to go out there and they wanted to beat Michigan. They wanted to be more physical, and at the end of the day, that's what they did, and that was where it was going to start up front. We thought USC's offense was going to move the ball. It was all going to start, can they stop Michigan's offense? Can they be more physical than this, classic Big Ten team? And they did that. So hats off to them. We've been, bashing on them for the last couple weeks, and we have to give them credit where credit is due. They came out here and played outstanding.
If this game was a shootout, 7-5 would have been on the table for me. This game was not the kind of game that you allow Underwood to have his breakout performance and the Michigan offense to go crazy, so very reassuring there. Chris, let's finish with injury updates and then some takeaways from this game that we think we can take from and look at for the rest of the season. So I think the bad news, Eli Sanders, Lincoln Riley didn't say for sure that it's a serious injury, but it looks like he's probably going to be out for the season, which is very disappointing. Wayman Jordan, he had a boot on. You tweeted that out after getting hurt in this game. Riley was more optimistic about Wayman Jordan, but a week before Notre Dame, that might be a quick turnaround for him. So USC's down at the linebacker spots. We'll see on Elijah Page. Trying to think of any other injuries.
Floyd Boucard.
Yeah, Floyd Boucard went down. Thank you. That was the other one. So we'll see with him. A couple defensive linemen. We saw Carlon Jones play because a couple guys went down. Keyshawn Silver got hurt but came back. Yeah, so just analysis on some of these injuries.
Yeah, I mean, Eli Sanders one is obviously the 2 running backs are really tough, but Eli Sanders has been playing really good ball. Not quite sure when it happened. Maybe on this play going out of bounds. I saw someone go to the medical tent. I couldn't see who that was. Usually it's like couple minutes or 2, but this was a really long one, and it seemed like it was kind of tense over there. Calling for the cart, came out really emotional. It was tough to watch, and it was kind of one of those like, that doesn't look good. And based on Riley's comments, in the moment I saw, that could be done for the year, and that kind of echoed what Lincoln Riley said up there. Just not looking good for the rest of the season. They need confirmation, which means they're going to do an MRI. It is a knee injury, so we'll see moving forward. That's a huge loss. But King Miller, you get Brian Jackson. Seems like
he's back.
We need to talk about that situation with Brian Jackson and him running out of the tunnel at halftime. But Wayman Jordan, it's tough. I'm not quite sure what it is. I need to do a little bit more reporting that. But he had a really positive outlook. I don't know if it's just him or he's like, they're being a little precautious down here. But it's going to be tough. Obviously, ankle, whatever. Those take some time. Prince Strong's still coming back from his ankle injury. But running back, obviously, all the special stuff that he does could make it difficult. We'll see. That'll be a big loss for USC. But you got King Miller and Brian Jackson. I think you could get by on that, but they are really, really depleted right now moving forward. And then you got the bye week, so maybe you have to wait till the bye week to get Wayman Jordan back. But it's going to be a race to see if he can get going for South Bend. But as we know, they have the king in the backfield.
They do have the king. So, yes, you mentioned Brian Jackson. So he had turf toe. He was out for this game, but he had been practicing.
We saw him in pads this week, come out with pads for the first time in 3 weeks, something like that.
Listed as out on the availability report, and then Lincoln Riley explained why he was able to play. It's because there was a wellness issue because USC had just run out of running backs besides King Miller. And here's the important thing. USC called the Big Ten and said, hey, this is the situation. Can he play? And unless Riley's not telling the truth, they said yes, and he was able to play. So they did their due diligence.
Yeah, and cleared by the doctors. He made that.
Well, yes.
He stressed that point too. He was.
I wanted to ask a follow-up. When the heck did he get cleared? He must have been cleared before, right? Or he's good at halftime.
I don't know. The number one question when I tweeted it out, I was like, "Holy crap! Brian Jackson just ran out here in pads." Everyone was like, "Is that legal? Is that legal? Is that legal?"
Oh, looks like someone pulled the fire alarm.
Awesome, but is that legal? I don't know. I guess you have to go through some protocols, and obviously, as you said, Lincoln Riley said they called the Big Ten to check with them because it was a wellness issue. They literally only had Kian McKelvey, their other walk-on running back.
It might be Sean.
Sean, you know what?
As your attention, please. Security has been notified.
I don't know what's going on, but that's the story. Brian Jackson got to play, 29-yard touchdown, gave him some hard just gave him some reinforcements. King Miller was like, yeah, that was my guy. It was great to see him out there just to have that. But it was circumstances where USC needed to call the Big Ten and get some clearance to be able to get a guy who was out come in.
Should we do these takeaways or should we wrap up? Maybe it just stopped.
I think we should just go.
Maybe that's the answer to the question. So takeaways from tonight, Chris, as we look forward to the rest of the season. Injuries, of course, are going to play a role, so we'll just have to see how that all shakes out. But, if you have your core for the most part, I don't think I see USC getting blown out in any games. I don't think it's like 2023 where, okay, you got Caleb Williams and the offense can score, but the offensive line is bad and the defense is bad. USC has enough to be competitive in all these games, and that includes at Notre Dame, at Oregon. I don't know exactly how many they'll win or lose, but what I said after that Michigan State game 3 weeks later now, I think still holds true. This team is better than I expected, especially on offense, and I think they have a chance here to be great. I don't think they're going to be a great team, but I think they have a chance, which is more than I thought at the beginning of the season.
Absolutely. The defense we saw tonight is the defense I thought that we were going to see this season for USC. And if they play like that, like they played 48 minutes on this field, I agree with you. They can hang with anyone, and they can be competitive every game, and that's including Notre Dame, Oregon. Obviously, Nebraska's going to be a tough one, but they can hang with every.
UCLA all of a sudden looks tough.
Best team in the Big Ten. What are you talking about? Yeah, they're going to be able to be in every game with every opponent, including these college football playoff contenders. And we'll see what happens in South Bend. We'll see what happens in Eugene. We'll see what happens the rest of the season. But if USC plays with that same intensity that they played on defense, like we thought they were going to play for the most of the season, they're going to be a good team, and they're going to be in every game.
The last thing I'll say, I think the team that can beat USC is one with a really good offense, one that can go score for score with USC and maybe get a stop here or there. That's the team, the identity of a team that will beat USC. And that's why I really didn't think Michigan had a great shot tonight. If you go back and watch Tunnel Vision, I'm not talking out of my rear end right now. That's what I thought. That's what India thought. I give credit to India, too. Ryan wasn't as sure. You needed to see him do it on the field. But, you got to be explosive because USC is so dang explosive. That's one thing we know for sure. Even when it's not firing on all cylinders, you blink, King Miller, 49-yard run. Makai Lemon, a crazy touchdown. Jacoby Lane, how about that first touchdown right over here where it looks like Jacoby Lane's blocking and then he cuts in and makes a great touchdown catch. The offense is going to keep USC in most of these games, and in order to beat them, you're going to need an explosive offense. Michigan, right now where they're at, doesn't come close to that.
No, I would agree. This is not like an upper echelon. This isn't an Oregon and their kind of offense.
No, but they lost to Indiana today.
They did lose to Indiana. Incredible defensive performance by Indiana. Now, I'm not saying USC has Indiana-like defense.
Yes, I'm not either.
But USC has some playmakers where they can slow down an offense. But that is a high-profile offense, as you said. If you find that team that can go bar for bar with USC's offense, that's when it's getting a little bit tricky. But we're getting way ahead of ourselves. We should enjoy the win tonight. But, yes, overall, if you get that counter performance, you're going to be in every game with this Trojan team and this elite offense. Makai Lemon, best wide receiver in America.
Yes, I agree. This victory just does so much for Lincoln Riley at USC. It was one that they needed to have. If they don't win tonight, the questions about is he the right man for the job get louder and louder. They can do really well against the subpar teams, but when you go up against a quality opponent, USC, they just continue to fall short. That would have been the narrative, but that is not the narrative after USC wins 31-13 over Michigan. He's Chris Trevino. I'm Connor Morrissette. We went long, but after a big win, sometimes that's what you got to do. Thanks so much for tuning in, and we'll see you next time.